Salute Knicks Nation. The streets are buzzing. Tonight we talk about the half-season report, where our New York Knicks sit. We'll get about the flowers, maybe some scathing grades. We'll talk about the future as well, as the home stretch of this season, man, is going to heat up. And our New York Knicks sit in third right now. Where does the future lie? The ceiling of this team this season. Let's talk about it. Knicks Nation with the chat, live off-day stream. Great to be with you. Salute to Knicks Nation. Let's get into it. We've got 4 segments to cover tonight as well. The highlights of the season so far, the lowlights of the season thus far as well. We're going to talk about future concerns and questions, and we'll conclude with future needs and adjustments that need to happen for this team to go all the way. Fam, welcome in, CT, your host. Great to be with you. And as the New York Knicks now will face the Hawks tomorrow night, man, that's a key game. First of a back-to-back. Look forward to talking about that tonight as well. And we'll do some Q&A with the chat like we always do, fam. No topic out of bounds in this one. I'll give you my thoughts on the Knicks season as we sit 27 wins, 16 losses to start. We're at the 43 game point, so we're just past the halfway point as well. Yeah, a great sample size. You know, obviously we've seen what we've seen. Without some personnel changes, I feel like, you know, not much is going to change outside of what we've seen. So it's good. It's a great point to, delve in and talk about the future and what the Knicks can do for the rest of this season as well. And of course, we're going to give out the halfway point grades tonight as well. Grades for every player, the coach as well. We'll talk about the front office too. But great to be with you. And Buzzer Beater in the building. Salute. Great to see you. Hope you're doing well. What's up, Knicks Nation? Hope everyone's doing well today. Football season winding down, but things are heating up there as well. I see the Eagles, the Commanders, Hart, Brunson heavily involved in that. And we're going to be talking about those guys heavily tonight as well. Obviously, we're going to get into the first segment, without further ado. Replay squad, I see you. Smash that like button. Great to have you with us as well. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, guys. But well, what a season it's been, man. It feels like it's been a roller coaster. I'm not going to lie. My honest thoughts are, there's been so many things that have held up true, been really positive. And there's been some things that have been more concerning than I'd expected as well, which you could say like that, that happens for every season, and things bob up that are unexpected. It's why we play the games, it's why we love the sport, why we love this team as well, right? You always got to be prepared for the unexpected as well. And obviously, we're going to talk a lot about the coaching staff, Tom Thibodeau, and how he has prepared this team and, what he has achieved, so far in the season as we give out these grades. First segment tonight, we'll start with some positives, right? The season highlight so far as well. And I keep it interactive. Great to see you, Geraldine. Give us your thoughts and any questions and grades as we go along. But the first segment is going to be season highlight so far as well. What have I enjoyed so far? What do I think has been the highlight of this ball club? The second segment will be lowlights as well, some concerns and questions in the third segment. The fourth segment, future needs and adjustments, right? But yeah, what we've seen so far in terms of the 43 games, for me personally, the highlights so far have been in no particular order with this one as well. But we have to start with the big move. Obviously, on the eve of Media Day, Leon Rose, swung a trade that changed the course of the franchise and the direction, man. We just saw Julius Randle the other night, Dante DiVincenzo earlier in the season. He didn't play the other night, but obviously, man, it shook up the team's fortunes and where we sit right now. But Karl Anthony Towns, man, he has lived up to the billing right now. And I'm just going to pull up the first grade of the evening and talk about, Cat as I do this. But Cat so far on the season, man, he'll get an A for me. And he is the team's MVP right now. And I feel like obviously the NBA.com, the latest MVP voting, has Cat in the fourth spot. So I think that's justified. I think we see the other night, great sample to look at without Cat in that lineup against Minnesota. You see the team fight, you see them show effort and battle, and even get ahead in some games. But you just see the limitations of this team currently without Cat as well. So for me, he gets the MVP badge, and he gets an A for the season. And that's been a highlight so far. He's been exactly as advertised offensively, dynamic. And we're going to talk about the stats of the team as a whole, as well, as I'll bring that up as well. The New York Knicks, man, second in offensive rating after 43 games. So we don't get to that point without Karl Anthony Towns, man. One of the prettiest offenses I've seen in my Knicks, 30 plus year of fandom. And obviously it's been a crazy, fun ride to see a stretch five like that. It's one of the best shooting bigs in the NBA, past and present right now. And the New York Knicks are averaging 119.2 for their offensive rating. We'll dive into the other numbers in a minute as well, but let us know your thoughts on Cat. David M says, Cat has exceeded my expectations in both his play and personality, an A for me as well. Great looks, David. Great to hear that I'm not alone in that. I think Cat deserves that A and the MVP of this team so far as well. We'll obviously talk about Hart a lot, Brunson as well. Hart gets the game ball for me at the halfway season point as the most consistent Knick. The most consistent New York Knick for me this season has been Josh Hart, right? If I told you he had 5 triple doubles at the halfway point of the season, you'd say, man, it's been a career year for Josh Hart. And for me, he deserves an A plus for the halfway point on the season. But he also gets the warrior icon because he has been the team's leading warrior, goes to bat for his teammates, steps up when the moment is big, picks up technicals in the heat of the moment, for better or for worse, steps to the officials, voices his frustration, his concerns. He's showing leadership. And Josh Hart deserves that warrior icon for this team so far at the halfway point. And as we're going to talk about later in the concerns, we're going to need more of that. We're going to need more of those, traits and more warriors, hopefully, to step up, right? But Hart will get the game ball for me as the most consistent Knick. Jalen Brunson, we'll talk about him a bit more later. He gets a B plus for me, and I obviously grade him as the captain a lot harder than the rest. I think leadership-wise, there's some things that I want to see more of in terms of recognizing the situations, getting the ball moving, getting guys, going when they're struggling, all those things that a leader needs to do. But to honor JB's season so far, and he gets a B plus, I'm going to give him the clutch icon as well as Captain Clutch. He has been the team's most clutch player. He's won us many ball games late buckets, double teamed, facing adversity as well. All of those things. So I think Brunson deserves the clutch badge as well. But back to the season highlights, man. The Cat trade, yep, that speaks for itself. I think that was a huge win. We fleeced Minnesota and we raised our ceiling in the process. I'm sure most of you agree. The second point, the record so far. We're going to talk about it in the concerns. We've dropped way too many winnable games and games that we're expected to win, but truth is, so far, you're as good as your record says. We are 11 games over 500, 27-16, and we're poised for a great position, to be successful later in the season as well. And obviously some of the highlights as we talk about up next, the December streak, fam. We took advantage of that December streak, and getting 9 games on the bounce to help us get to that 11 games over 500 as well. So we've set ourselves up. Now we've got the most difficult schedule coming up, guys, and that is really, really, really going to test this ball club, as I look forward to talking about it next. Next up, we've got AP and Old Boy in the building. Salute, guys. Great to see you. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your weekend. Great to have you with us, keeping the streets buzzing. AP says, what are the chances of Josh Hart getting the most improved player? I think he deserves to be in the consideration, absolutely. But I think maybe just due to his age, fam. He's about to turn 30. I think they're going to give that to a younger player traditionally. But great shout, keeping the streets buzzing. Old boy G says Cat and Hart are the anchors of this team so far this season. Yep, 100% agree with you, fam. I think they deserve the highest grades so far, and plenty of room for improvement from Jalen Brunson. First year as the captain. But yeah, we go back to the points. The season series. In getting that record so far, 27-16. We've now got the season series basically over Milwaukee, Orlando, and Philly. Right now, the season's unfolded different ways than many expected. Philly are definitely underachieving. They're out of contention. Orlando have had a lot of injuries as well, and Milwaukee have been, a shell of their former self. But having said that, if I told you at the start of the season that at the halfway point that the Knicks had the season series over the Bucks, the Magic, and the Sixers, you would have absolutely taken that right now. So the narrative has changed a little bit with the parity in the East, but it's a highlight to have the season series wrapped up against the Magic already. We could be vying for seeding against those guys later, and especially Milwaukee as well. Some other highlights of the season so far has been our flashes on offense, right? Like I said before, one of the prettiest offenses I've seen in years. Obviously, a 5-out look. Hart shooting's gone up a level, and to be second in the league in offense, it's a beautiful thing. We're going to focus a hell of a lot more on the defense because I think the offense can be improved with some personnel changes as well, some lineup changes, and hopefully a shot creator that Leon Rose can help us get in at the deadline. But another thing on the Knicks side favoring, I think, is the parity in the East right now. Philly out of the race, Milwaukee, we're beating them already. Orlando as well. There's a lot of parity, Indiana underachieving as well. So those have been the highlights for me so far as well. Let us know your thoughts, guys. If you agree, disagree, you want to add in a couple more as well, let us know in the comment section as well. Replay squad, salute. And do us a favor and smash that like button. It's been an unbelievable season so far as well, but things are heating up in a major way. A snowstorm over there where AP is. Stay safe. Many blessings. Great to have you with us. Knicks 25 and 26 champs. His Cat covers a lot of the holes with this roster. Amen, brother. Amen. I think, he's an MVP candidate. We're blessed to have a guy like that. Obviously, we know his flaws defensively, but with a guy like him, I mean, it just changes the ceiling of our team, so much. So Cat gets the A for me. Before we move to the lowlights, let's just talk a bit about the bench and their grades as well. Deuce McBride, I've given him a B+ on the season thus far. A little interrupted. It was going to be an A. He was so consistent and was on a tear just before he missed time with that hammy, unfortunately. Like Deuce, well and truly on the way back. So I'm pleased to have Deuce back in the fold. He gets the B+. Precious Achua, Cameron Payne. Little tricky grades, up and down campaign. But I think I'm judging it from the perspective of, he was a late addition in the summer and he's the veteran minimum signing. So we're getting maximum value out of him. And I think he deserves a B, B-. Let us know your thoughts on that. And I think Precious Achua's had great moments as well. He deserves a B- on the season as well. But there's a distinct absence of a ninth man, and we're going to talk about that a lot tonight, fam. The ninth man. Where is the ninth man in Thibs' rotation right now? It's missing, in my opinion. Chop Low in the building with the super chat. Says salute Knicks family. Big up, Chop Low. Great to see you. Let's get into it. Let's get into some concerns up next, right? And also let us know your highlights of the season. Knicks 25 champ says when Mitch comes back, he should be moved back into the starting lineup. I'm going to agree with you. Provided Mitch gets fully back up to speed, I think we need to see some extra size. I think that's going to change the Knicks' defensive issues as well, which we're going to talk about coming up right now. But before we do that, there isn't highs without lows, fam, as well. We started with the season highlights. Now, what are my season lowlights so far, man? I mentioned things that I didn't expect heading into the season. I thought we would be absolutely elite defensively, fam, on the wing and the perimeter specifically. And unfortunately, in no particular order, inconsistent defense and a lack of grit in some of these losses has been really, really frustrating for me. And it's something that's been definitely a low light, man. And we need to clean up, to help us raise our ceiling, right? And you guys mentioned Mitch right on time, absolutely on point with the size, the rim protection as well. Precious has filled some of that void, but obviously the lack of size, he's a traditional power forward in my opinion. And so Precious, I don't think he's that true impact five that we need right now. And Mitch is that guy right now, hopefully, if he's back fully healthy. But yeah, the team's inconsistencies and the lack of grit, man. Slow starts in some of these bad losses, but just being out hustled, and losing those one-on-one matchups, specifically on the perimeter, lack of toughness, um, lack of grit defensively, and just inconsistent defense. The schemes, which we're going to focus a lot more on later with Tom Thibodeau. Several bad losses, man. Specifically 2 against Atlanta, 2 against Chicago, and 2 against Detroit. Now, there's a lot of other bad losses individually. The one against Utah, definitely. The one against Orlando when they were depleted as well. But we have the season series over that, so I'll forgive that. But no excuse to lose to Detroit twice at home, Chicago twice as well, and Atlanta twice as well. And I want you guys to tell me, what do you think those 3 teams have in common, fam? What is one of the biggest reasons you feel we've lost to Atlanta twice, Chicago, and Detroit as well? I'll shout it out. But it's definitely a recurring theme because the New York Knicks are lacking extra size positionally, man. I think OG at the 4, Cat at the 5, Mikal Bridges deserves a C plus for me. We've got some key stats to look at. Offensively, he's helped us with some spacing, and he's excellent cutting, and he's good on the drives, the dribble drives, and the fades. But defensively, he hasn't lived up to my expectations, and I think 43 games is enough of a sample to see that there's clear regression where he's either going to flick a switch and just guard much smarter and tougher, which is kind of concerning for me because why isn't he doing that already? So I don't think he can just flip a switch. So I really do unfortunately think it's just regression from where he used to be. The next point I want to make is underwhelming performances too often with big games from OG and Mikal Bridges, right? Those guys, we've invested a lot of money in Bridges and OG, dubbed the wing stop. And unfortunately, they haven't lived up to that so far as well. So that's been a low light for me. Now, I'll give OG the B. He's had some amazing stretches. I think the first 20, 25 games, he was probably the most consistent Nick. But then why I mention inconsistency is basically regressed significantly since then. Now, why is that? Obviously due to minutes, that's one thing. I think heavy minutes, heavy reliance defensively to cover up and hide everybody else's mistakes. I think that's why I've given OG a B because he's been underwhelming, but he's also, I bear in mind that he's helped tried to cover up a lot of other deficiencies with the rest of the team. In terms of Kevin McCullough, buzzer beater, he's still rehabbing as far as I know, and he's not fully cleared. So yeah, that's unfortunate. I really hope that he could give us something this season, but let's see. I'm starring a lot of these points that are going to tie in to the next segment, fam. But you guys are buzzing on point. Smash that like button. It's great to have you with us. D. Grant, an AP, says size is one of the reasons why the Knicks, have lost those games against Atlanta, Chicago, and Detroit. D. Grant says Detroit and Atlanta are younger and they bring a lot of energy, and that's why the Knicks are losing to those teams. 100%. I think size positionally, credit to their recruiting. I think obviously Chicago have stacked up some young talent. Detroit's on the come up, and Atlanta as well. But does that highlight our weaknesses more than their strengths? Are they specifically extra strong at the wing, or is it more highlighting our weaknesses and our over-reliance on OG and McHale? I'm going to talk about that later, because I think the Knicks need a proper backup wing to make sure that someone else can give those guys a spell right now. If OG got injured, man, I don't even want to think about that. And Bridges, well, he's been really underwhelming defensively, but he gets a pass because he's been, solid offensively for the most part. The next low light has been poor coaching and adjustments in these games, minutes allocations as well. Now, I didn't think it would be this bad. I think we all know Thibs' shortcomings, and we're going to focus on that a bit more. But obviously, I was always the proponent of when you give. Let me just fix up some of this spam in the chat. Yeah, that's all cleaned up now. One of the things that we all aware of is Thibs' shortcomings, but I always have the proponent of if you give Thibs the right personnel, he'll utilize them. Well, I think we can debunk that myth, fam, because I really felt like this was a dream lineup for Thibs to coach, and he's definitely made some bad decisions, some poor adjustments as well along the way. Failure to adjust to the other team's strengths as well, which we're going to talk about a lot more in the next segment coming up, fam. But Thibs will get a C- for me. I definitely wanted to give him lower, but obviously you have to look at the record as well. He is coaching for regular season wins, right? And that's his downfall to an extent, right? Yes, it's important to pick up regular season wins because you don't want to be in a dogfight later in the season with these other teams, but there's still ways that you can grind out wins, and obviously utilize your roster to its full potential. Right now, I don't think Thibs has been doing that, especially losing some of these games when I think some younger legs would have given us a nice boost against these Washingtons, Detroits, Atlantas, and so forth as well. If you tune into the post games, you know all about it. Fam. Chop Low says bring up some G League guys. I do think one might be on the horizon, fam. I think TJ Warren coming up in March would be a great addition. 6'8" wing, and he can definitely score and help the New York Knicks create some extra offense. Old Boy says Lakers cut Quincy O. Any chance we could sign him? He's a big guard who can defend and shoot the three. I think the Knicks will be keeping their eye out on all the waiver wire guys, definitely. Let's see. Maybe he is CAA. Maybe that'll be a connection that the Knicks will look into further. I do think that the Knicks will be looking to add some extra talent at the trade deadline. I'm going to speak on that in a minute. Big Dave says, I like Mitch, but his return timeline changes daily. It's so frustrating. OG and Bridges have been disappointing so far as well. Yeah, I think that speaks to two things, man. Like you said about Mitch, I think we all know Mitch's strengths, and it's definitely going to improve this team. But how much do you wait, and how much stock do we put in, for his return outside of making a backup plan? You have Hakpority, you have Precious, you have Sims. What else can you do at the trade deadline? There's been rumors about a Jonas Valanciunas as well. Nick Richards got traded already. Walker Kessler is still out there. Next up, let's talk about the third segment, future concerns and questions, coming up. Right. Number one right now is coaching adjustments right now. Now's the time to put in all the adjustments that I think should have been made, could have been made, and we hope gets made, fam, coming up. And I'll speak on that a lot more in the next segment. But just off the top, coaching adjustments, man, adjusting to the other team and the scouting report, the personnel as well, right? This drop coverage, where, you must protect the rim, leave shooters wide open. That's one adjustment that needs to be made, right? Shooters are going to shoot. And right now, as I bring up the stats, the New York Knicks, man, unfortunately coming in at 26th in the NBA in three-point defense right now, man. How much is that going to kill us later in the season, right? As the scouting report continues to evolve on the New York Knicks, man. Every time I see Kobe White play the Knicks, man, he feels like he's going to get 15 threes up. You just know it. Every time we see Malik Beasley now, these other guys, they know the scouting report now. The New York Knicks must adjust and clean that up, fam. We're giving up 38% against teams from the three-point line, fam. 26 in the league, right? That's pathetic. I know our defense rating right now is 14th, league average. That's obviously factoring in, though, the full 43 games. I think over the last 10 games, the New York Knicks are something in the 20s with defensive rating. And as I said, as the season develops, teams will catch wind of our weaknesses even further if they haven't already. And they're going to let it rain. The next adjustment I think is key is getting in another guy into the rotation. Fam. And I'm going to speak a lot more on the next segment, because that's my number one adjustment for the future, fam. Like as of this day today, the next game, the first adjustment Thibs has to make is play a ninth man in the rotation and don't deviate, right? 8 man is not sustainable right now. The other adjustments is substitution patterns, hockey substitutions, right? It's not working right now. You must have Brunson or Cat on the floor at all times right now. Having them both out of the games for key stretches, having lineups with Jericho Sims, Precious Achua out there with Josh Hart. It's no wonder these teams go on runs, Some of these games we've lost, we've actually been a commanding position. Oklahoma City, for example, man. We get that key win in Oklahoma, and the vibes could be different right now. I think that would be a huge win to lift this team's morale right now. And we just don't have the bench right now that, that he doesn't trust right now. So, it doesn't make sense why he's taking the 2-3 best players off the court, at any time. So that is another key adjustment that has to make as well. And as for his other sort of quirky decisions to start Jericho Sims in some games, I understand the extra size element, but we've seen that enough, and it hasn't worked out for the most part. I just don't understand why he keeps going with that right now. Basically, a hockey substitution buzzer is taken out, basically having routine subs where you sub out, 4 or 5 guys at the same time. Very regimented substitutions, basically, and you're not looking at how the game is playing out. Let's say on this minute, I'm going to sub out these guys no matter what, and he doesn't deviate from that plan. So you have to be within feel of the game, see how it's going. Is a guy hot? I better not take this guy out. Cameron Payne, for example, the other night, or is another guy hot on the other team? And it's like, I better keep this lineup out here because this is a key moment with 3 minutes to go in the quarter. With those kinds of things. The next point I want to make about a future concern and question is the Knicks' predictability, fam. I feel like, my concern personally, I feel like we are very predictable. We are predictable. Offensively, we've had some success, but I do know, man, I'm an OG. I've been around a minute. And I do know the success you have in the regular season can be very different to come the postseason, fam, where you see the same team for a 7-game series. Good coaches will adjust. they'll take away what you're good at as well. And we are very predictable, fam. I'm going to talk about that in what the Knicks need to do in the next point to counter that. Right? Who do we need to get in? Do we need some more ball handling to ease Brunson as they, blitz, trap him? They'll double him. They'll make life difficult. The shot clock goes down. We are very reliant on a Jalen Brunson and the other guys, which is why the ball needs to move. We need to be less predictable. We need to be less predictable. So these are some future concerns for me. The next point, bad matchups, right? We all know styles can make fights, Isn't it crazy how we have the number of the Milwaukee Bucks, who you would say are a better team than the Atlanta Hawks, the Pistons and the Bulls and all of these other teams we've struggled against. But no, styles make fights. I'm worried about a bad matchup because against size, length, grit, it might be a team that plays with extra pace, can get at us right now with tired legs. I think, that's a concern of mine. There are bad matchups, and I think we can correct that. We can rectify that with some personnel lineup adjustments as well, right? Cat at the 5, that ain't gonna fly for me long term as the main, the main lineup. Now, if you stagger it, if you split it a little bit, I'm cool with that. But I do think against extra size, we are going to struggle. Yeah, and it's no coincidence that we're losing to all these teams with athletic wings, with toughness, especially out west. Even Dallas punked us, the Rockets as well as these teams out east. Now, the next point, future concern question, moving forward, is the squad needs to stay healthy. This squad needs health, guys, to reach our full ceiling. Right? There's just no way around that. This squad needs to stay healthy. And I think minutes, obviously, as well, is going to be the most critical thing moving forward, keeping these guys' minutes down, which is why in the next point, my number one adjustment is to get a 9th man in the rotation. I'll talk about who should get that chance. Who do you guys think should play as well? But let's get to some comments and questions just before we move on to the next one. D. Grant says, if I'm Jericho, I would ask for a trade because Thibs is damaging his confidence. I think maybe that boat has sailed already. Yeah, I think Jericho does look like he might be moved on. That's a prediction I made, fam, based on some reporting coming out. AP says, does anyone think Thibs should be replaced after the season? Yeah, I think there's a real possibility. I would call for that myself if the season doesn't play out accordingly. Now, we're at the halfway point, and the beautiful thing is it's up to Thibs. He can double down, as I put in the headline, and I honestly feel like, just knowing what I've seen from Thibs, I feel like he's going to double down. He's going to continue the 8-man rotation, and he's going to double down on these philosophies. But his fate is in his hands. I think he can, take some advice that we're talking about tonight, try some different things, maybe listen to Rick Brunson, maybe even listen to William Wesley, Gerson Rosas, Rick Brunson. He could listen to Leon Rose. Hope he does. Because, yeah, 4 or 5 minds are better than one, We can't claim to know it all. As much as Thibs has knowledge and he's good at what he's succeeded at what he's good at, but the truth is he doesn't have all the solutions. He doesn't know it all, fam. He hasn't won a championship as a head coach yet. B. Grant, yeah, I want to talk about the bench. I think our bench is weaker at the moment, but I think it can get strengthened. But yeah, I agree with your point where I think the rookies need a chance. And yeah, stay tuned because I'm going to talk about that a lot more coming up. Eddie says, what do you do about the too many minutes problem with Thibs? Yep, coming up in the next segment as well. What's up, Ronald? Eddie F says, yeah, but Hart, JB Deuce, and Cat are all banged up already, CT. That's a concern as well. Yeah, definitely. I think that's why my number one adjustment, fam, is to get the 9th man in. And as I switch over to that point right now, My final question and concern for the future and the second part of the season, guys, is other teams are catching up, right? I'm starting to see Indiana make a run. We've seen that before as the Knicks maybe get more tired. We peaked during a soft schedule. Our schedule's getting tougher as well. You add all those things up, and some of these teams aren't going as hard as the Knicks are in some of these regular season games. And I feel like other teams will catch up, right? It's just not realistic for me to think that the Knicks will continue winning with this tough schedule at the same pace as we were in December. I think, January is a lot tougher, fam. With that said, guys, we dive into the future needs now and adjustments, right? This is what has to change, in my opinion, and most of your opinions as well, right? As we address the rotation issue right now, number one thing is get a ninth guy in there, fam. And to D Grant's point, I feel like you can make a case for Tyler Kolek. You can make a case for uh, Pacome Dadier, and you can make a case for Ariel Huckporty. And quite simply, I don't mind. I wouldn't mind seeing either of the three inserted into the rotation, right? We haven't seen enough of them yet, so I can't claim to know which guy is the best guy to throw in there right now. But I do feel like you throw in that ninth guy, it's going to change a lot. It's going to give us a bit of extra pace. In the case of Kolek, change of speed, a guy who can orchestrate, facilitate, and devastate. And Pacome Dadier, he could throw him out there. He gives us extra size. He could give us some shooting as well. That'll help the OG Mikal Bridges situation, with their heavy minutes as well. So you can make that case for Pacome Dadier as well. And before Mitch gets back, Ariel Huckporty, we haven't seen enough of him yet. Now, the New York Knicks are thriving, rebounding, but I do feel like that extra intimidator and enforcer in the paint with that extra size that he has, I think, deserves a chance, to play next to Cat. And that leads into my next point. And by the way, regarding Landry Shamet, regarding Matt Ryan, and that I ain't mad that they're out of the rotation, right? They ain't giving us nothing, right? I'm definitely playing a rookie. I know this probably won't happen, but I'm definitely playing one of those three rookies ahead of Shamet and Matt Ryan right now, because they're for the future. And now's the perfect time because we're going to face this same question next season with our depth, right? So, it's better to invest in the young players that we have on multiple year contracts rather than a veteran journeyman, if you get my point. I think there's more potential in those guys. So yeah, what do you guys think? Which one of these rookies would you throw out there? And yeah, we'll talk about some trade deadline and G League pickups like TJ Warren. But yeah, I think while we have the opportunity now, we can't sign a 15th guy like TJ Warren yet until March when the prorated salary can fit under the salary cap. But right now we have those other guys on the roster, and that's why I think Thibs is failing to get that ninth guy in there. Other teams will catch up as we'll gas out. 8-man, it's just not sustainable. But some other advantages is the Knicks need more size at the wing and the center positions, guys. I feel like, losing to these teams, it's been no coincidence. We've lacked that rim protection, an enforcer down low, but also some better wing size as well. They do take advantage of Jalen Brunson whenever they can, but what hasn't helped, the fact is Mikal Bridges just hasn't been as stout as a defender as we hoped, on the perimeter, and he gets a C+ for me. I think he's kind of held up offensively, although I did expect a little bit more, but by far he's been the most underwhelming on the defensive side. But again, I think there's just been natural career regression right now. I think he's 28 now, hasn't missed a game in like 8 seasons, and I just think his body is, is wearing down a little, right? But yeah, I do think that OG Anunoby is having to cover up a lot of our deficiencies, and that's why if there is some frustrations coming out of the locker room, I do feel like, yeah, Brunson can get better defensively. He's been losing his man a bit. Cat as well, falling asleep. Um, as I talk about later in the point in smarter defending, I think blow bys, the Knicks over helping with the Thibs scheme adjustments, silly fouls. We have a tendency to gamble as well, and lack of coaching adjustments on players that are hot, respecting the opponent. How many times are we going to see a hot shooter come into MSG and stay hot? Right? How long is it going to take for there to be an adjustment right now? And I don't mean just, oh yeah, let's just be better. That's all we hear. We hear Hart say it, Brunson say, I've got to be better. Right? All they do is stick up for the coach right now. But where's the real adjustment right now? Stay on your man. Everybody just stick to their man. Don't overhelp, right? And stay on these hot shooters, and don't gamble as well. Also, what we need is more shot creation on offense, I feel. That's where you could look at the trade deadline. I feel like if you are going to look at a wing or a center, I feel like you're going to look for a guy like, Alec Burks that Thibs will be looking for, I think, that can score a little bit off the bounce, can defend some wings. Yes, he's not a wing stopper, but he's a guy that can create a shot and he can kind of stay in front of his man, hopefully on offense. But I do think regardless, the Knicks need more shot creation on offense right now. Maybe that's something for the off season. But Bridges, a little deficient in that area. OG Anunoby as well. And I think too much reliance is on JB and on Cat. David says either Huck or Pacome, Payne and Deuce are going good right now. Yep, nice one. Ronald says Thibs have about 10 coaches behind the bench. Absolutely. Absolutely. Old boy G says major concern is our team's future. We maxed out in salary, traded away tons of draft picks, and if this team fails to deliver, we're in for a long rebuild. I definitely share the same concerns about the future, but I think the Knicks could flip a few pieces if they did find themselves in that predicament. I do think they're going to give it a 2-3 year, shot with maybe some retooling around the margins. But I do think, yeah, we're relying a lot on players that aren't really here right now. Mitchell Robinson, who's this creator, another wing defender that can come in. I'm really looking at the guy with the 2 lowest grades on this, on my half-season report right now. I mean, everyone else has kind of been as advertised, basically, give or take. But Thibs, OG, Bridges, I mean, you're as strong as your weakest link, right? You guys probably heard that cliche a million times, maybe in the workplace, maybe on the streets. But it's true, man. You are as good as your weakest link right now. These good teams, they are going to emphasize our weaknesses, and the thing is, in a playoff series, guys, you can't just, you don't advance if you beat a team once, twice. You have to beat a team 4 times. So yeah, it's going to be up to Thibs. Can he adjust? Can he outcoach a guy in the first, second round, third round? Now, to my point before about back to some season highlights. The final point is parity in the East, right? If you guys don't already know, man, the Boston Celtics are 8-8 in their last 16 games, man. Let that sink in. We are within striking distance of the Boston Celtics. Now, maybe that could be a hell of a surprise. Maybe Boston come back down to earth and fall off a cliff. It's possible. It will be great. I hope that happens. But right now, yeah, they've got some problems to fix up as well. So 8-8 for the Boston Celtics so far as well. So every team has their ups and downs throughout the regular season. But I do believe in their heavy talent and their coaching, to get them through to the Eastern Conference Finals. And I think that's going to be the matchup that the Knicks need to beat. Can we get past Cleveland in the process in the first and second round? I think that could be a decent matchup for the Knicks. Maybe not one of the best matchups or one of the worst, but I am really looking forward to seeing how this team stacks up against Cleveland. Because we've only played them once. We've only played Boston once as well. Um, D. Grant says Alec Burks is 34. I don't want any more old guys on the team. Yeah, that was just an example, by the way. I'm not saying I want Alec Burks specifically, but I can see the Knicks probably look into that as a gettable piece. Ronald says Shamet comes in the game and he don't shoot. I think confidence is a key thing as well. Yeah, Thibs really has to do a better job at substituting these guys at the right time and keeping the high end talent in the ball game. Either Brunson or Cat, which also means that health. We have to stay healthy. I mean, we see it without Cat. We can't beat Minnesota without Cat. That was a convincing win by them. They didn't have DiVincenzo. Could we win maybe one game out of a four-game series without Cat? Absolutely. But I think our ceiling caps out. The squad needs to stay healthy, and Leon Rose needs to get some backup. Some extra guys in the rotation. Now, some things that we can correct right now is just defending more smarter, and that's up to the coach. Because these players are a reflection of their coach. They play on edge. They panic a little bit. They overhelp. All of those bad traits Tom Thibodeau has, where even the commentators have to point out when he's sitting down. That shouldn't be happening. Where a coach has a certain label on them, where the commentary has to point out when they're sitting down. Right? These things are just egregious, in my opinion. Can we defend smarter? Don't overhelp. It seems like even when an average player like Wendell Carter Jr., no shade on him specifically, I'm just using this as an example, but I seen it in the Orlando game. Wendell Carter has the ball on the block, right? He's got a decent defender on him, whether it's Precious, OG, I don't know, could be anyone. But for some reason, these other guys go running to him like he's Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and they leave two shooters wide open, and then everyone has to scramble, rotate, foul a three-point shooter or, use up more energy. So we have to do better and be smarter defending, right? Also, individually, the players aren't immune to criticism, right? There's been over blow-bys as well. If you're going to close out, learn how to close out properly, man. It shouldn't take a 79-year-old Clyde Walt Frazier to call out the obvious, all these silly blow-bys, three-point fouling, right? Get in the gym and learn how to close out properly, right? Keep your hand up and stay in front of the man, right? Don't close out into his space and don't blow by. Because if you find most of these open threes we give up, fam, is from a blow-by. The guy puts the ball on the floor, resets, and gets an open look off a simple blow-by. And then the other one is gambling. Deuce, OG, all of that, Bridges, they like to get in the passing lane. Cat, I'm looking at you for the silly fouls as well. Every time Cat stays in the game, we're a great chance to win and get ahead. But every time he has to sit with foul trouble, that's given the other team ammunition. Fam. These silly fouls from Cat, man. He's basically a lock to pick up his third foul by halftime, every single time. And I do think that's a reason why the Knicks need to get a 5 next to him. Tendrell says Knicks need to trade Jericho. I think the Knicks are looking into that. Definitely. I think more trust needs to be put on some of these rookies specifically, but I think if in no particular order, I do feel like Tyler Kolek deserved a chance when Payne was struggling, and I do feel like Pacome Dardier didn't really do anything wrong to be taken out of the rotation. Especially when Matt Ryan got opportunities ahead of him. Man, again, we're drafting players and we're just, I'm not going to say fail to develop them, because we did develop Deuce. Yeah, we did have a hand in developing Emmanuel quickly. RJ Barrett did develop, Mitchell Robinson did develop as a Nick, but we have wasted a lot of draft picks and not developed them properly. Not played them minutes when they deserved it. Um, right now I think Thibs is a little too short-sighted. Um, he's coaching right now for the current day when he doesn't stop to think about, okay, the playoffs, if I give these guys some minutes now, maybe it'll benefit them later. Um, especially with these minutes, OG playing 39 minutes and Bridges, like I think to get that ninth man in the rotation, what I would do is get a guy in for 5 to 8 minutes, whoever it is, some point in the second quarter, end of the first, get a guy in there for 5 to 8 minutes. Right. I don't think there's any excuse, even if you're worried about losing a ball game. I mean, you're not going to lose in the first or second quarter. D. Grant says the Celtics are gearing up for the postseason. They're not worried about the regular season. I think a part of that is true, but I do think there is some chink in their armor, fam. I think Kristaps Porzingis gave some pretty interesting quotes about, the team lacking some fight and those kind of things. They are a little soft. They did have that label last season as well. Remember Indiana? I think if there was a tougher matchup, Indiana definitely could have won 2 or 3 of those games against them. And I think we would have given them a really, really strong series. If we had Julius, we had Dante and Mitch. Um, no more old players, says AP, like unless it's a Dante for a veteran. So you want us to get in some younger legs. There is Chuma Akiki. He's playing well. Moses Brown. Those are some names that I like out in the G League as well, fam. I do think that, defensively is the biggest, area to raise this team ceiling, man. Offense wins you regular season games. Defense wins you championships, fam. You will never win a championship if your defense isn't stout, right? I don't care if you have 5 Karl Anthony Townses or 5 Steph Currys that can just shoot threes, right? You're not winning a championship, right? Even the Warriors needed, Draymond Green, Andrew Bogut, to fortify their defense, right? Andrew Bogut wasn't no offensive player, man. He could barely hit a jump hook. But he did all the dirty work. You set killer screens to free up Curry. He gobbled up the rebounds and blocked shots. And, Draymond Green did a bit of the other stuff right there. Milwaukee, when they won their championship, they had Giannis. It was a, defensive player of the year type candidate. We don't have somebody on that level, that can just, change a game defensively like that, and cover up everybody's mistakes. Yet we developed iHeart as well. Tendrell says, yeah, Knicks really do blow by. Yeah, the opponent's going to blow us by, fam, if we don't fix our 3-point shooting, man. 26th in the league right now. And look, our 2-point defense is not too bad. 19th. We're allowing 47%. We are 5th in turnover percentage. So we are taking care of the ball, but I do feel like that's because we're slow in pace. 25th in pace. And that goes into one of my concerns for the future, fam. Predictability. One of the reasons we're ripe for a bad matchup is we're very slow in half-court offense, fam. If you want to, if I'm another team that's trying to beat the Knicks, what do, man? You just throw a wing on Jalen Brunson, help slow him down a little. You bang him up physically. Put Dyson Daniels, put Derek White, whoever it is, and then our slow pace is really going to hurt us. I feel. I think we need some energy, some quick legs, and we need some extra size in the lineups. Yeah, continue mentioning some names you think can benefit the squad as well, because I do think Leon Rose is going to make some moves, and that's what we're going to talk about next. David M says, not only that, CT, our guys sag off players. They know they can hit the three. It's frustrating. Yeah, it comes down to just lack of respect of the opponents or smart, low IQ defending. I mean, most of us have been watching MSG for a while. Clyde, how is it that Clyde just says the same things over and over? He's been saying it for 10 years now. Seeing your ball, seeing your man, uh, asinine foul, fouling a 3-point shooter, all these things. It doesn't take watching film, or it shouldn't take watching film for these guys to defend smarter. And I feel like they're just panicking sometimes. It's another bad trait of Tom Thibodeau. Yeah, I mean, like I said before, Thibs rarely sits down. I do think players do take on the personality of their coach. I do believe that, because that's the message they're getting all the time. That's the guy they're listening to in the locker room, in the practice film sessions. That's the guy that they are listening to and taking his advice. Now Johnny Bryant, Upton left. Rick Brunson is here. He's not really going to strongly disagree with Thibs, so he's going to share or echo similar things. And then all the other guys are Thibs disciples. Thibs doesn't want anyone else that's not a part of his circle. He refuses an offensive coordinator or a consultant even. Like I mentioned an example, the Pelicans have Mike D'Antoni as a consultant to just draw up some plays for Willie Green. He doesn't sit on the bench. He's not a part of the assistant coaches, but he's a consultant. We all know that Thibs ain't open-minded like that. So that's another thing. And yeah, as a defensive coach, I feel like Thibs should be doing better. Playing weaker defenders in drop coverage is just killing us. Buzzer says adjustment. Stop refusing to shoot the open mid-range 2-point shots in the paint for a contested three. Absolutely, read and react. As Thibs says, you have to take advantage of what's out there. I do got to acknowledge that the Knicks have been better at hunting mismatches, but I think to our detriment, because the league is just quicker at adjusting, and switching as well. So you guys have probably noticed already is that, we have been adjusting to the mismatch. If Cat has a small on him, like he had against Oklahoma, we did go to him in the post, but not enough sometimes. Mikal Bridges, he's been excellent at posting up smaller guys, but sometimes we've been, killing the offense, and sending the offense to a halt by, taking too much time, to get to that mismatch and things like that, and I think that's one of our biggest issues is pace right now, fam. Now, I know Jalen Brunson, as his career develops, we want to preserve him and his legs. So I don't foresee us getting to be a fast-paced team, especially under Thibs. But some ways to mitigate that could be Brunson doesn't be the one to always bring the ball up. Get a second ball handler in the lineup. One of my adjustments would be to put Deuce McBride into the lineup. Yeah, that's one of my suggestions. Now, it might not be this season. If things fail, it might be an adjustment. Put Bridges in the, Bridges off the bench. Put Deuce next to Brunson, because we do need multiple ball handlers out there that can create. Especially in the playoffs, I think they're definitely going to blitz Brunson, and take the ball out of his hands. AC says the super soft schedule for the entire month of December is leading to a 24-10 record was somewhat deceiving. We have team issues when not playing the scrub teams. Definitely. PD says one of the dumbest things I hear is trading Jericho like he's our reason why OG and Bridges and Deuce play so inconsistent. Which is why, along with bad coaching, is the problem. Oklahoma, AP, that they're definitely going to be on the other side of the West. They're going to be a tough matchup. They're going to be tough. Tendrell says hire Clyde for head coach, consultant even. Some of the things he says are just basic. But yeah, I don't think Rick Brunson will be a head coach. I think he likes his position as the assistant right now. But guys, I think Deuce McBride's getting back to form like he was before the injury. I like those lineups. Even if you have to sub out Bridges first, send him to the bench after the first substitution. You bring in Deuce next to Brunson. You keep Brunson in for a little bit, then you get Brunson out. You keep Cat in the ball game, and then when Cat goes to the bench, you try to get Brunson back in. None of this hockey substitutions. You have to coach to your personnel right now. But yeah, I don't blame Jericho Sims for losses. What I say is, in terms of Jericho starting, to me it just doesn't make much sense when you're out of the rotation and then you start. These other guys in the locker room will be looking at it, things like, why don't I get an opportunity? But I think that'll fix itself, because I do think there'll be some moves on the horizon. But yeah, Mitchell Robinson, I think definitely get him back in next to Cat. Can we wait that long? When is Mitch going to return? That's one of the biggest questions remaining, and I don't want to wait in terms of put all my eggs in that basket right now, fam. I do really feel like the New York Knicks can either play some other bigs next to Cat that we have on the roster right now, bring up Moses Brown, who looked decent with Indiana and looks great in the G League, or swing a move right now, man. We are in trade season, and let's see what Leon Rose can do. But my biggest concern is the defense. No championship defense is going to be built around Karl Anthony Towns at the 5, man. And once again, I don't care how good our offense is. I think it's right to point that out as a highlight for the first part of the season, and it's been a pleasure to watch sometimes. The shooting, the spacing, the ball movement has been pretty. But right now, man, that's not what wins championships. It's kind of a mirage where I'm sitting right now, because we all know what happens in the playoffs, fam. Teams adjust. They slow the pace down. It can become more physical. The size game becomes more of a factor in the postseason as well. And you live and die by the 3 as well. You have to manufacture offense other ways. And I feel like the Knicks are at their best when they're getting stops and they're getting out in transition. Every time we allow these shooters to get hot and we're picking the ball up out of the basket, it just demoralizes our offense in terms of like, okay, Brunson has to trudge the ball up the court through a full court press. By the time we get into our sets, there's about 10 seconds left on the shot clock, and then we're just hoping that we can get a nice look, which is why we need more creation. Buzzer says we have a high 3-point percentage, but few attempts. Make that make sense as well. On point with that, fam. That's my next point. You took it out of my mouth. I think to be 5th in 3-point percentage for the league, 38% basically, is excellent. But to be 25th in attempts doesn't make no sense with 35 attempts per game. So that has to get closer, fam. Either we get better looks at the rim, 2-pointers, or if we continue to shoot high percentage threes, our attempts needs to get up. But I tell you what I think is limiting us, and why that is, why we have the 25th attempts, is our pace, fam. If you play at a slow pace, you ain't going to get up easy threes, Teams are going to be up on you, and I think, these wings guarding us, Brunson's a shorter guy, he can't just pull up, over wing defenders. Bridges contested threes average at best. It's shaky. The Cat's our real best 3 option, 3-point shooter, and he usually does it because the 5-man can't come up on him, but the guards and the wings can come up on our other players as well. So yeah, another reason why we need dual ball handlers, in my opinion, get the ball up the court a lot quicker. Um, and one of the reasons why I feel like Josh Hart deserves the most consistent player of the season, fam, and the game ball A plus, because Hart distributes, but he's a release valve for JB. You know, every now and then when JB's just sick of getting doubled and bringing the ball up, credit to this, but he does pass up the ball to Hart, and Hart will bring the ball up, especially off a make or miss. But yeah, Hart is so important, and I feel like having an extra presence that can handle the ball, create a shot to the better, a better ability than Bridges can. Because yeah, right now Bridges, he's solid. He's solid offensively. He's underwhelming defensively, but he's not really going to create offense at an elite level and off the dribble, in my opinion, or facilitate. I think we've seen that in really tight games against Oklahoma, a little too inconsistent. PD says if Thibs would play Huck Porty and Sims as the backup and Cat at the 4, we would instantly win because we would dominate the boards and the paint. 100% agree with you on that. That's what I think we're missing with that presence in the paint. It would actually help us close out shooters better, because I feel like if we seal the paint away, those other guys don't have to overhelp and get worried about getting blown by. I think we'd be better with the closeouts. So yeah, in particular order, the two main adjustments I would make would be get that 9th man in the rotation any way possible, and obviously get more size. Get Mitch back at the 5, Huck Porty, Sims next to Cat. We would continue to dominate the glass. And I think, as we sum up the halfway point, I think it's been a pleasant aspect of the offense getting Cat, but I think we've abandoned last season's identity too much. We've gone too far away from what worked last season, which is dominate the paint, the rebounds, but also protect that rim right now. And maybe there's a world where you can't have both. You can't have Cat at the 5 and that pretty offense, but we need something in between, because something has to give. And I feel like we're just going to continue to put more pressure on our guys, from JB on the perimeter, Mikal Bridges. But my two biggest concerns are Thibs and all the things that comes with that, and Mikal Bridges, fam. And obviously health of OG, but the reliance on OG and Bridges, man, they haven't been, maybe it was high expectations or lofty expectations, but they haven't been what we hoped, what I hoped, especially at defending the perimeter out here, fam. David says we play soft. That's our problem. I think that's an element to our lack of, play sometimes. I do feel like also lack of smarts is one thing, and coaching decisions as well. I think we can play tougher. Thibs has more options. The small sample that I saw Pacome Dadier guard some wings, man, he showed some toughness, He held his own, but he can't get any minutes. Every time Huck Porty's been out there, he's shown toughness, So I think the solution might be within. David says True Brunson and Cat horrible on D. And David says, I kind of get the feeling the front office saw this as a transition season, and this off-season they will make real moves to balance out the roster. I think that has to be something on their radar, no doubt about it. I feel like obviously we don't anticipate being so close to the second apron. We're fortunate that we could get the Bridges trade done with just sending Bogdanovich out and all of those minimum salaries, to Brooklyn and to Charlotte. But that put us the fact that we had to pay OG Anunoby $42 million, maybe that was a miscalculation by Leon and Brock Aller. Because if OG took 35, if OG's starting number was 33 this season, that instead of 42, that would have given us an extra possibly 10 million to play with, fam. That would have given us some extra room to get some rotation help in there as well. So yeah, all of those things are true. I think the Knicks do need, we do need more transaction cycles to get things more fortified. But one of the things that I'm worried about is we don't seem to correct mistakes. What I mean by that is we just double down. We've got guys that are on the roster, rookie contracts, they're not playing. We've got veterans, Matt Ryan, Landry Shamet, that aren't playing. If you aren't going to play them, move them on. Get some players in that will. And that leads into my concern is if you're going to win a championship, your whole squad wins you the championship. You need a full squad. Players go down. Players need rest. Every team that wins a championship has a deeper squad. You can't. No championship team plays 7-8 men for a whole season. And then we're relying on Mitch, a guy who just hasn't been able to stay healthy. He could be our solution to our problems as well. But when he gets back, we're going to have to wait and see. There's just too many questions right now. So yeah, I would bring up Moses Brown, or I'd trust Huck Porty, give him a chance. David says Thibs has to be better coming out of the All-Star break. And AC says Thibs continues to run guys into the ground with these minutes. He needs to learn, but doesn't. Other teams are load managing, not Thibs, though. That's a big concern, man. I think the rest of the East will peak later, and they'll start coming up. Also, the younger legs, Detroit's, they've already beaten us twice. And I'm someone who's a realist, man. I don't just gloss over that. Some big fans might be just looking at it like, yeah, that's just Detroit. That was just a back-to-back. That was a bad night. No, you need to be humble sometimes. You need to understand your weaknesses and also look at what the opponents are doing. It's a recurring theme right now. If we played the Magic at full strength, right, I think there's a great chance we win that series, but I'm not going to lie. I'm not like overly confident. If we played a 7-game series against the Houston Rockets right now, for example, I wouldn't be overly confident. If we played a 7-game series against Atlanta, well, they've beaten us twice right now, and we play them tomorrow night. So join us post-game, man. We'll be talking a lot more about that, fam. If the Knicks can't adjust and beat Atlanta for the third game of the season, third matchup, maybe they've got our number. Maybe it's a lack of adjustment. I don't know what it's going to be. But I think there is recurring themes for this team. This team losing, some of these bad losses. In terms of their minutes and their age, AP, and them being young, you can look leggy and still be a young player. It's not that they're looking old. It's just, you need to, health science will teach you that you need to balance out, their minutes, because it allows peak optimum performance. You need your guys' minutes sort of sporadic, come off, play 3 to maybe 5 to 6 minute spurts, and then come back to the bench, then come back on. What Thibs does is he plays guys 11, 12 straight minutes, and that creates a larger recovery time. You're exhausted. You need 3-4 minutes just to calm down, catch your breath, and then your legs are soft after that. So yeah, it's not just about age of the players and the players looking old. It's how they're managed in terms of, continuous minutes as well. And then, even the simplest things, like we're winning games by 28 points, and Thibs has still got Jalen Brunson out there with 4 minutes remaining, 5 minutes remaining. Some of this is just gross malpractice, and it needs to be pulled aside, right? Now, if it's an 8-point ball game with 4 minutes remaining, yeah, understandable. But like, again, it's just insane. Even if we're 16 points up, with 4 minutes remaining, you know, sprinkle in some of the bench guys. Worst case scenario, the starters need to come back in. Big deal. But what is really the big deal about that? If you sub out Jalen Brunson and Cat, right, with a big lead, and let's say the bench surrenders the lead and it goes back down to 8 or 10, what, you bring them back in. But like, basically the criticisms of Thibs is they ain't just Knicks fans. If you talk to Minnesota fans, you talk to the Chicago Bulls fans as well. There are other fans of other fan bases, man. They'll say the same things as well. And obviously, Thibs is a coach that can get the most out of a squad. His record speaks for itself, right? It's just how far can he go? He raises the floor. Can he reach the ceiling? I have serious doubts. And look, I do think that this squad should be, as good as it's been this season, it should be in a better position, in my opinion. Honestly, I think we should probably be 5 to 6 games, better this season, I think, with better management. Buzzer says CT, was this Tibbs' plan to win as many games as possible until March, comes back, and then creates an expanded rotation with players in their natural position? If that is the case, then, I'll be happy that things get changed, and I do think Tibbs really, really likes Mitchell Robinson. And I do think, we saw last season, he really, values that size, that rim protection, and the grit from last season's identity. Obviously, we lost Isaiah Hartenstein, but we haven't lost that identity with Mitchell Robinson still here. But I'm a little worried because he hasn't played bigs next to Cat very much. Even if it's Jericho next to Cat or Precious, he doesn't seem to want to go with those double big lineups, fam. He did it a little bit against Cleveland when Cleveland was just murdering us when they had Mobley and Allen out there. And then he threw Huck Porty out there for a minute. Yeah, you got to talk to Kevin Garnett. He said the same thing. Yeah, on the No Smoke pod with Paul Pierce. AC says Atlanta is tough. Tomorrow will be interesting. Yeah, it will be, fam. And I guess I'm grateful that there's more parity in the East, because if the Bucks had their stuff together, if Philly were, we could be fighting for a 5 or 6 seed. But right now, we're kind of lucky we had the softer schedule. But are other teams going to catch up? I think that's a real question with Indiana now. Indiana are 8-2 in their last 10. Right, that's no joke. Milwaukee Bucks are 7-3 in their last 10. I'll bring this up right now. This is where the table sits, but now I'm not worried about Indiana and the Bucks in a playoff series. Those matchups actually are quite favorable, but the Hawks, the Magic, Pistons, Celtics, Cavs could be bad matchups for the New York Knicks. But yeah, if Indiana get their stuff together, as we've seen, they can be a bad matchup as well. They play fast. They like to shoot a lot of threes. We know we like to give up a lot of threes as well. So yeah, we have to clean that up, guys. As I said, no blow-bys, no overhelping, leaving these shooters wide open, fam. I'm sick to death of seeing guys like Malik Beasley, man, celebrate on the court. It's insane, man. It's predictability, and we just haven't adjusted as well. AP says that's why I think Leon Rose has work to do. Definitely, and I think he's given Thibs an excellent roster, and I think it's been most of the failures so far have been on Thibs, and I think most of the success we've had has been more Leon Rose. Getting generational players like Cat, the shooting, getting OG in here. But I think Thibs just hasn't adjusted well enough, and I think we should be 5-6 games better than where we sit right now. But the real test is going to come. It's all good to beat up on these teams like Washington missing players, and Orlando. We got the season series, but they've been depleted. Milwaukee, it's all good for that, but how are we going to look now against the next few months against these teams? That's going to be really telling for me. David says if you look at Boston's last 8 games, they're also playing 500. 16 games, fam, they're 8-8. Yep, definitely. There's some concerns with them. David says Cat injury is more concerning than they're saying. Hopefully not, but I did see something positive earlier. I'm going to bring this up. Hopefully it doesn't linger, fam, but from Christian Winfield of the Daily News says today Cat practiced full participant as well as Josh Hart today. So Hart and Cat practiced in full. So that is great news as well. So I'm going to take that and assume that Cat will play tomorrow, fam. The fact that he was full participant today. Yeah, you guys are on fire tonight. I love the energy, the questions, the points. Salute Paula. So far for the season, I mean, how have you seen it? I think it's been right where, I guess the wins and losses is where I expected. After the season unfolding now, I feel a little bit more underwhelmed in terms of, guys, the defensive side and a lack of adjustments from Thibs. See, the Mitch thing, the reason why, David, the Mitch thing is so poignant is because his salary, whether he is the solution as the player or his salary is the solution to help upgrade the team, you can't ignore both. This team cannot improve internally without Mitch's comeback or his salary, right? Because there's no other money. There's no other money available to upgrade the team. Now, you might be on the side of just play Hukpority or play Sims or Precious. Is that going to be a big enough adjustment to go all the way and win a championship? I don't think that's going to be. So for this team to get to where it is right now, to winning a championship, something major has to change right now. And it's either Mitch back or his salary gone. That's the one way or the other for me. We ain't trading OG right now. We're not trading Bridges. So I think that if you're hopeful, I guess the biggest thing that could change is Mikal Bridges defensively, gets more closer back to what he was in Phoenix. That's something I would be hoping for the most, in terms of, something that I can bank on. Mitch's health concerns are definitely concerning, and I wouldn't put all my eggs in that basket. But a player like a Mikal Bridges, man, if he can get back to what he was, in Phoenix, closer to that, then our defense can really, hold up against a lot of these teams. Also, maybe the Knicks can just catch a break. There always is luck involved. If Boston have taken real regression, then amen. I'll take that all day, every day. Because the East, like I said, I think Cleveland is beatable. That's one of the more positive things I'm holding on to right now. I think in a 7-game series, I don't think the Knicks would be favorites right now. But based on what I've seen, I think the New York Knicks have a real chance to beat a Cleveland in a 7-game series based on how we can match up. But again, I think Boston, if they really regress, that'll open the door for these New York Knicks, fam, to make serious moves coming up. Now, really looking forward to tomorrow night, man. Trae Young coming back. The energy is going to be flowing in the building. Cameron Payne, man, is he going to come out hot again, man? Will Thibs continue to play him and hopefully extend his minutes? Deuce McBride, right? We need him guarding the point of attack. with Trae Young as well. But this half-season report now is in the books. Great to be with you tonight, guys. Smash that like button. We've got the Knicks streets buzzing. It's been 43 games in the books now, and all eyes are on the future now coming up with this tougher schedule, fam. Will these end of season grades look different, fam? I hope I'm giving Thibs an A+. I really do, man. I'm not someone who just wants to be right and wants to hate on everything and, you know, wants guys traded and people fired and all of that, man. The only thing I want is the Knicks to win a championship, fam. I just feel like this is what has to happen for the Knicks to get to that point. You know, you don't succeed if you don't learn from your mistakes. You know, if you commit the same mistakes over and over again, they say that's insanity. You know, so we've seen a couple years of Thibs now, 5 years in fact. Man, time flies. But I think the next step, man, will come a lot quicker than the last 5 years, fam. I think Thibs is, you know, he's getting closer to potentially getting us closer to that chip, or see you later right now. But salute Knicks Nation, salute to the chat. Have a great rest of the weekend, man. We'll see you on Monday night. Knicks against the Hawks. Let's get it. Let's get revenge on that one, man. Prove some doubters wrong. Peace, everyone.